Visit our YouTube channel at Max TV. Click on the subscribe button and be the first to get notifications on our uploads.
And now moving on. Governors of Nigeria's oil-producing states have been enjoined to convene an emergency meeting on how to deal with an imminent economic crisis occasioned by the current oil price plunge in the international market. This follows widespread fears about a likely halt in oil production as the global COVID-19 shutdown continues to obliterate demand for the black gold. Correspondent Chika Bodozie tells us more.
In the last few weeks, the price of Nigeria's Brent crude has hovered between $30 and $20 per barrel, which is a further decline from its market value of $45 per barrel when global demand for fossil fuels witnessed a sudden crash earlier this year. The unprecedented decline in the price of crude oil is occasioned by the coronavirus-induced lockdowns that have grounded industrial and economic activities worldwide. According to global energy experts, countries like Nigeria that are heavily dependent on crude oil for their economic survival will have to brace up for hard times in the aftermath of the COVID-19 pandemic. The economic uncertainties surrounding the worst ever oil price crash in recent history appear quite gloomy for Nigeria, which depends on crude oil sales for about 60% of its revenues and 90% of its foreign exchange earnings. In March this year, Group Managing Director of the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, Malam Melekiari, painted a gloomy picture of the Nigerian economy when he hinted that the country had been unable to sell about 50 cargoes of crude oil on the account of the global COVID-19 lockdown. Owing to lack of motivation for continued oil production, speculations are rife in some quarters that the country may have no other option than to halt production if the COVID-19 pandemic persists. With limited funds at their disposal, the federal and state governments would find it increasingly difficult to fund their budgets. This would immediately impact negatively on the Nigerian economy, leaving the ordinary citizens at the receiving end of an imminent economic meltdown. Perhaps the country's oil-producing states that are almost entirely dependent on 13% oil derivation funds for their survival would turn out to be the worst victims of the current global oil glut.
The Niger Delta economies are going to be most impacted because other parts of the country are slightly diversified when it has to do with other areas like agriculture, even if they've not scratched the surface. But it's even worse off for that of the Niger Delta because we've not really started agriculture.
In addition to crude oil and gas, littoral states of the Niger Delta are naturally endowed with resources that can easily be exploited to promote tourism and agriculture. In 2010, governors of the region's oil-producing states established a regional economic bloc under the Braced Commission. It was an ambitious plan designed to utilize the comparative advantages of individual states for economic cooperation in power generation, transport, agriculture, infrastructure development and industrialization. Several years after their predecessors in office abandoned the regional economic development agenda on account of political differences, incumbent governors in the South-South geopolitical zone met recently in Asaba to restart the Braced Commission.
The Braced Commission can actually help. The concept was to ensure the infrastructural development of the region, so as to ensure that it can help to attract so many things in, that is the region beyond oil. A lot of industries of different types, manufacturing, processing, export, and so many other industries should be established at this point in time. If that is done, it's going to reduce this dependence on oil. Apart from industry, you still have agriculture.
The Niger Delta governors had to sit up, and instead of working separately and challenging themselves and competing among themselves, They should really come together and begin to talk together as one person. If not, they will perish as common enemies in the midst of what is happening in the country. Because whether the revenue is 3 naira or 4 naira, it still will be divided among the 36 components that make up the federation. You still have to be divided among the 774 local governments. And what will be the share of the Niger Delta based on that revenue profile? It's going to have a serious effect.
The need for governors in the Niger Delta to act fast and shield their states from an imminent economic crisis cannot be overemphasized. Between 2017 and 2019, long before the coronavirus-induced crash in the price of crude oil, the National Bureau of Statistics had designated Akwa Ibom, Bayelsa and Rivers State as states with the highest unemployment rates in the country. In transforming the regional economic landscape for the common good of the largely backward oil-producing communities, the governors are advised to invest in agriculture.
Agriculture is the way to go. Investing in agriculture, agriculture is the only catalyst that could drive as much employment in our society today because of the potentials around it. The agricultural value chain is so much that it can mop up all the youths we have in our society.
In calling for increased investment in agriculture, Niger Deltans draw copious inspiration from the Cross River State experience. The loss of 76 offshore oil wells to Akwa Ibom State and the ceding of the oil-rich Bakassi Peninsula to Cameroon in 2002 has shattered the economy of Cross River State. Undaunted by its declining economic fortunes, the state immediately embraced tourism and agriculture, which is now its economic mainstay.
Cross River is guaranteeing the country that we will be there and available to provide all the seedlings that we require in this country. Today we are supplying 17 states, but our capacity to take care of the entire state, it was actually installed and designed to take care of West African demand. So I'm sure that Cross River is fully prepared to deal with the issue of the post-pandemic crisis, which is hunger, which is loss of jobs, which is dislocation of the social fiber of society.
With the Cross River State experience, most Niger Deltans are convinced that crude oil has done more harm than good to the regional economy.
The crude oil is not a resource you should depend on. It has damaged our ecosystem. It has damaged our aquaculture. It has damaged so many farmlands. It has brought strange diseases through gas flaring. It has damaged our roofs. There's no roof that can last 3 years without being darkened, blackened, and holes dug into it. It has damaged our water system. We used to drink from the streams. Even the one you fetch outside, you look at it within 1 hour, it's black soot. It has damaged our ability to even wear white. I have more than 200 sins of crude oil. It has damaged our psychology. No wonder a famous scholar described crude oil as the devil's excreta, because wherever it visits is disaster.
With an unprecedented decline in global demand for crude, the rainy days are already upon Africa's largest oil-producing country, which currently finds itself in a catch-22 situation. In the Niger Delta, where commercial and industrial activities have been at their lowest ebb for decades, the future appears even more bleak. The implication is that governors of Nigeria's oil-producing states will have to put on their thinking caps to devise creative means of transforming the region to survive a post-oil economy. In doing so, they should realize that delayed action portends more calamity for the region's economy. Hence, the need for an immediate economic plan of action for Nigeria's Niger Delta region.
Inside the Niger Delta,